Hey everyone, we are so grateful to be kicking this summit off with a true visionary and changemaker, Mimosa Jones Tunney. Mimosa is the founder and the president of the Schoolhouse and the architect behind American Emergent Curriculum, AEC for short. It's grounded in developmental science, coherence, rigor, and humanity. Doesn't that sound wonderful? You need to check more of that out. It's all over the internet. You've got to go look it up. You're going to learn more from her in just a minute here, too. Mimosa's path started on Capitol Hill, and she went through Hollywood all before she shifted her focus to education reform, which is what led her here to you. Now, a nationally recognized model where students perform at twice the national average without selective admissions, Mimosa and the Schoolhouse were named finalists for the 2025 YAS Prize, often described as the Pulitzer of Education, winning the Transformational Prize. All right, Mimosa, I am so grateful that you're here. And I appreciate that you're taking the time because I know you're really busy. You continue to shape conversations on the future of learning, and our leaders are craving change. So here's the first question. First of all, welcome. I'm glad you made it. And what should we do to have success in our education system the way you all have done it?
Two things. One is we have a pedagogical crisis in this country. We educate based on tradition, not on evidence. And that is reflected both on the nightly news and in our dismal scores. And we're not really using cross methodologies. And so we have a Montessori school or a parochial school or a public school or a private school. And yet there are parts of these methodologies that are so fundamental to childhood learning and childhood itself that we should do what all great Americans do, right? We should take from the very best and create our own. And that became the 14-year project of the American Emergent Curriculum. Over 70 educators and professors have their fingerprints on this 6,000-page document. It's the only vertical and horizontal curriculum in the United States, and I can talk more about that. But the Schoolhouse itself became, 8 years ago, the practicum for it. So we knew if we just wrote a book or just published the curriculum, we wouldn't be able to show people what actually happens to children when you put them in the right environment with an exciting, up-to-date, interconnected curriculum. And when you treat educators as the high-level professionals that they are. And so as soon as we opened, we had a wait list. We've, of course, been visited. We get about 40 visitors a month, from the Secretary of Education to a congressman who's coming on Monday. And so many people are coming to try to replicate what we do. And we do it for half the cost and half the budget. So we just went down a checklist to say, if we were going to make the best elementary school in the country, what would it look like? And there's no end to that story. We're always growing. But we've come really close in the last 7 years in making a place where children truly flourish.
Wow. And there's tons of evidence to back that up too. So can you tell people about the evidence and what they could expect if they start adopting what you have done here?
Well, absolutely. Pedagogical science has been around since the Mayflower. And of course, we're aware of Pestalozzi and Piaget and Montessori and Malaguzzi, who started the Reggio Emilia movement, but they're all really saying the same thing. They're saying that mixed age classrooms are the best environments, mixed age based on development stages. So 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12. They're saying that everything it should be centered around movement, right? And so even if you're doing math, you're moving. Even if you're writing, you're moving. And that means moving materials around the classroom. Executive functioning should be a very high priority, teaching personal responsibility in the sensitive period where personal responsibility really matters. And that's, of course, 3 to 6 years old. Anyone who's ever hung out with a kindergartner knows that they are very personally responsible and they are extremely focused on their individualism, right, as they go into the next development stage. And so if we can look at these sensitive periods where children are very focused, for instance, as I said, personal responsibility from 3 to 6, in that sensitive period, they're also very focused on order. So if you tailor the curriculum to the sensitive periods, if you give them a beautiful environment, I could take hours and hours talking about all the pedagogical evidence, but if you give them a wide sector of the pedagogical evidence and put it in their school environments, what you're going to find is there are very few behavior problems. that there are sharp declines in ADHD. You should know about the schoolhouse that we do not cherry pick. We have children in the same classroom that are functioning on the spectrum, that are hearing impaired, that are dyslexic, that are just, kids without challenges, kids that are off the charts on math, whatever it may be. And the reason why we had to build this model is because you have to walk into the classroom and actually see what happens when, as you said, we start to implement all of this evidence-based processes.
Yeah, it truly is incredible to witness. So I've done a lot of research on you all, and I do reference you often. And so I'm wondering this, why have traditional schools or why has public education not adopted this? If we know it works.
That is such a heavy question. This happened to Dr. Montessori in 1913. She actually came here for a speaking tour, and the traditionalists at the time were the Teaching College of Columbia. And they went after her very significantly. It's very well documented. She was, very close to building a school in the basement of the White House. She was very close to having the California Teachers Association adopt her methodology. And they didn't want a person from outside of America with all of these new ideas infiltrating the traditional system. That's one reason. A professor once told me years ago, over a decade ago, she said, we tend to become very creative when we're at times of peace. And then we tend to hold on to rigid systems when we're at times of war. So if you look back in time, you can kind of see where we've gotten so close to adopting these new but old ideas, right? It's back to the future. And where circumstances have brought us back to traditions. The third thing that I'd say is we were all brought up in a traditional environment. And so we have a habit as a society of saying, well, we turned out okay. Except we didn't turn out okay. Our mental health lack of mental health is off the charts. Our addiction to screens, our inability to be a thoughtful electorate or thoughtful communicators. I mean, we're nowhere where we need to be to protect this constitutional republic, which was the reason for public school to begin with in the 19th century.
Right. Okay. So I know that there are so many areas we can go here, but I really want to pull this back to the behavior issues that our traditional schools are dealing with. Our public education, they're showing up here a lot and they're looking for answers. So based on what you do and what you all have learned, what actually does influence a student's behavior?
Okay, well, let's take environment, for instance, because there are so many things, but I'm a big fan of what we've created is called the educational architecture. And so we can't just say that a curriculum is going to solve America's education problems. We can't just say that a push-in program or a teacher training program or AI or anything is just going to unilaterally solve our problems. There's an architecture to learning, and it involves environment. It involves a well-constructed interdisciplinary curriculum, and it involves an educator and parent culture. So we'll start with the environment. We've known for many years that, for instance, something as small as fluorescent lighting exacerbates ADHD. And yet every school in America, traditional school, almost every school in America has a fluorescent lighting. So when you take a look at what a 6 or 7-year-old child is experiencing when they walk in the door of the average traditional school, they see a security guard, they see a metal detector, they see an environment that is not made for them. So right away, there's a rub in terms of dignity and respect. The toilets are too high. The doors are too difficult to open. The furniture is made of metal and it's uncomfortable. One of my huge bugaboos when I tour schools across the country is I will walk into elementary classrooms and everything that they need to pay attention to is at 8 feet. It's on the top of the ceilings. And those things never get rotated. So we know from psychology that once you look at something 4 times, you never look at it again, right? So those bulletin boards never change. The work at the schoolhouse, for instance, everything on the walls is student created and it's all at their eye level. So far, just in 3 minutes or 2 minutes, we've talked about lighting. We've talked about approach and welcome. We've talked about the inside of the classroom. Those are all exacerbators, right? I like to call them barriers to learning. We've already, by the time the child has entered the classroom, put all of these things out for them that are uninteresting. There's also a lot of waiting in environments. So we're waiting for the teacher to give a presentation. We're waiting and sitting and not really getting to move and do, which we have 400 years of proof that show that that's how humans, not just children, learn. And so in an alternative environment like the schoolhouse or using the American Emergent Curriculum, children are greeted by the staff every morning. Hello, how are you? We have one of the safest schools in America because of the way we structure the school, but there's no security guard, there's no metal detector. They walk in, they put their own things away downstairs, they come up to their classroom, they're greeted by fresh flowers on every table, natural light. They have work plans as young as 5 years old. So they're getting to work as soon as they get in that classroom. There's classical music playing. They have directives that they've worked on for the previous week. And then after they've worked for about 45 minutes is when we have our first circle. So another one of our, and I'm talking about children 3 to 5 years old in our primary mixed age classroom. So what's interesting is they haven't sat around waiting. They're greeting their friends. They're already working. And then, oh, we're going to get together in circle for a lesson for 10 minutes. Okay, good. And then I'll move on. The entire process of that environment is pro-child. And they feel comfortable and happy and productive because of that part of our architecture.
Wow. Okay. So, and I understand that because it what's interesting is you do have a lot of structure.
Yes.
There's a ton of structure. So you need a team. You need a team to work well around the kids, correct? I mean, that sounds like what we
Yes.
need. So how do you keep a team productive though?
A team meaning our educator team.
Yeah, well, and
Oh
I would say
boy.
it's not just educators; it's a whole system of like you all
Oh
are very well-oiled machine here. So yeah,
yeah.
talk to me about that because it really is a team approach.
Well, we are a very productive team. I
Yeah,
mean,
I bet.
there's a couple things that go into our team is very well educated. So the majority of our educators hold master's degrees. 3 of them hold PhDs. This is in an elementary environment. And they're very well educated in the pedagogies that the methodologies that we incorporate. So AMI trained, Socratic trained, Reggio trained, project-based learning trained. We're about to launch a platform in June, an AI-based screened teacher platform that will allow any educator in the world to become simultaneously trained in these methodologies through the AEC. So what's interesting about our team is, let's just go to the bare bones. We only have 2 rules for working in the schoolhouse and in our expansion schools and with the curriculum, and that is no gossip, no politics. It's very simple. Politics kills the modern American school. And so what you see is us spending a lot of time on things that don't matter to the child. So we don't care who you voted for or what your policy is on this or the other thing. When you close the door to your car in the morning, that's left there. And gossip is one of those things that makes team members feel uncomfortable. And so we very early on parted ways with people who were gossipers, and that really set the stage for 8 years of this beautiful team that we created. So let's just start with the team members that come. They know that those are our rules. They know that those are our values. We practice what we preach. And so, of course, we're a phone-free school. We're single screen use for children. So they're not issued Chromebooks or laptops or anything, single screen for 4th and up. But for instance, educators are not using their phones throughout the school day. So from 8 to 3:30, there's no use of phones by educators. We have a 4.5-day work week. And so on the second half of Fridays, we provide an option for parents, but our entire team meets for professional development. And the great thing about this professional development is we're reading Make Your Bed. We're reading The Power of Moments. We're reading The Power of Now. We aren't reading education books. That's a different kind of PD that we do twice a year. In our weekly professional development, we're concerned about them. how are they showing up? Because educators are part of that environment, that first piece to the architecture. And so how are they centered? How are they running their lives? How are they seeing themselves in their world? And I would say that the last part is that we practice what we preach in terms of kindness. So when you come to the schoolhouse or any of our expansion schools, what you'll see is children will look you in the eye and shake your hand, not because we've taught them to do that, but because this is how we operate as a team culture. And that also expands to the parent culture as well. It's something that we've spent a lot of time on, and we've really focused on its development, and it makes all the difference in the world in a community.
Well, that is a big question here is about the parents and the caregivers that come into these kids' lives. They have to be a part of this culture. You said something so important. It is a culture that you are creating. So that's why that productivity, that is, everybody seems to know what they need to do, and then it seamlessly works. So how do you communicate that to parents? Like, how is that truly a partnership?
Well, a few things. So when we first started the school 8 years ago and started the American Emergent Curriculum, we noticed, I thought this was going to be a little bit easier than it was. I was like, okay, we're going to combine methodologies and we are going to bring pedagogical science to the forefront of the American education system. And then I all of a sudden realized, well, there's no educator culture, there's no streamlining environment, and there's no parent culture. So I really learned this from Loris Malaguzzi and the Reggio Emilia, which most people associate with art. And of course, their art program is fantastic. But what they do well there is their parent-teacher connection. And so what happens is in the United States over the last 40 years, because we've lied to parents for so long, they no longer trust schools. They no longer trust educators. And we saw that when we opened our doors. So it was a process of a few years of saying to them that we are 100% transparent. At any given moment in any given day, you can read the curriculum. Each day you get an update on your child through photographs. Each week you get a full update on what the class has accomplished. There are, of course, bi-monthly conferences, and very proud of learner-led conferences, right? So the learners are letting their parents know where their challenges and successes are. So these things are communicated weekly because we have this opportunity to sit as a team for 2 to 3 hours every Friday. They're also communicated in a way with parents that engages them in productive activities for the school, not things that are just passive. So for instance, we have a farm stand that is run by our students every Thursday. They raise $1,200 in 2 hours. I mean, they're remarkable, and the whole community comes. But all of the parents come. It's PTA Bake Sale 2.0, right? And it becomes this, hundreds of people are showing up and connecting with each other. We have something called school care. Every day, 5 learners are taken from their classroom and they participate in school care. So they raise a flag with a veteran, they do paint touch-ups, they repair things, they clean the chicken coop, and parents are invited to that. So they're always actively involved. It's almost like it is the glass schoolhouse of 1915, where you can see everything that's going on. And that has truly created an environment of trust from the educator perspective and from the parent perspective.
Oh my goodness. It's so that it truly is a culture, but you're right. It has to be built on trust. And that takes time, it sounds like, but that consistency over time is incredible. And I think we're just doing so many things in piecemeal, thinking those are solutions that they're just not going to work if it's not working together. Wow. Okay. So what is your vision then for the future of education? This is a really big question. You can handle
Oh,
it.
yes, I can. I mean, this is all I think about. This is what keeps me up at night. The future of education has to become cohesive. So, over the last 150 years, we have created, for better or for worse, there's no one to blame. We've just become fragmented. We've become a fragmented system. Our children leave our home and they're fragmented in a busing system that takes them to a fragmented school system with fragmented classrooms. One of the things that really surprised me early on in this journey was that if you go to classroom A in any given school, what is happening in that classroom is very different than what's happening in classroom C. So there's no quality control. There's no, the American Emergent Curriculum is delivered at the same time throughout the school. So a kindergartner is learning the same thing as a 6th grader. just at different development stages. So I can see on a weekly basis through communication with parents and educators, how was that delivered through photographs? How did the child react? It is cohesive in the sense that the entire community is participating in that particular lesson or that particular session. So cohesion is important in addition to curriculum because we also have push-in programs, right? So let's be kind this week, or let's learn executive functioning, or let's learn about Earth Day. You know, we are obsessed with teaching to the holiday in the United States of America. And I think it's because there really is an absence of a true formative and intricate American Emergent Curriculum. And with the absence of that, what you have is an educator pulling from this reading program, this math program, this science program, and then, oh, by the way, when it doesn't work, we're going to do something different the next August. And we want our kids, again, as I said, to be kind. So we're going to pull this program in. And oh, executive functioning is a thing now. We're going to pull this program in. None of that connects. It drives educators crazy. It drives people at the top crazy because they're not getting results, and they're probably the ones that care are frustrated by it. And most of all, it drives the customer crazy, who is the child. The child doesn't understand the cohesion of anything. Why am I learning botany over here? Why do I only get one day to celebrate Earth? Why am I reading this book that was written 60 years ago? Well, you should, but you got to tell them why, right? Kindness should be something that is daily, that is embedded in the school daily. Executive functioning, their ability to, as I said before, keep work plans and be responsible, is a daily practice. And so cohesion is the vision for the future of education. It's understanding that to change things, we need independent schools, charter schools, public schools, parochial schools to start investing not in individual curriculum programs, but in architectures, in programs that are helping them develop the parent and educator culture, helping them develop the environment, which we started talking about at the beginning of this, which is so important, and helping them develop and adopt curricula like the American Emergent Curriculum that is interconnected vertically and horizontally, is updated every 6 months. You still have textbooks that are 15 years old in this country. And that is moving forward into the mid-21st century by teaching in the zone of proximal development, that we are giving harder things for our children to learn, not dumbing them down.
It's just, when people think about what we need to teach, they think about dumbing it down and they think about making it easier on kids because of behavior. But really, we need to hold kids accountable and the adults surrounding them. So, yeah. So this has been incredible. I'm going to hand this over to Josh because he's going to wrap this up. There's just so much more we could learn from you. So,
I know.
Josh, can you just wrap it
I
up?
looked at the
Thank
time.
you.
I can't believe, Mimosa, that we're almost up with our 30 minutes, but I wanted to have an actual item for folks because you've talked about some like pretty heavy topics today. We haven't held our punches as far as throwing questions at you. You've done a beautiful job, but for those who are looking to maybe initiate some change tomorrow or the next day, what is one actual item that you would recommend for them to do?
Well, I would go to the schoolhousemodel.org. That is our model site where they can see real data. Yeah, people are interested in real data and particularly pedagogical data. And I would go to the schoolhouse.org. We are building several cohorts. We'll be in Dallas, building Nashville, North Miami, South Africa. These are all community-led initiatives. We are not interested in being top-down. These are communities that are interested in having a new American school, a school that is built for the mid-21st century, that puts the child at the forefront. And there is so much that parents and listeners can glean from these two sites that is beyond just what we do. I think the both of you know that we were set to take the Department of Education building in Washington, D.C. before energy snapped it up. But we were working with the secretary to take that building and create a childhood commons. And so part of the work that we're doing there that will continue at a different site in Washington and hopefully be very bipartisan is showing people what pedagogical evidence can do for your child, whether you are a parent of a newborn, an educator, an administrator, or even policymakers like those in Congress, that we can all start getting smarter about what children need. And it's not trends. It's been around for a very long time.
For sure. And so, with your work, as far as transforming the educational experience for so many people, I would love for our viewers, both on YouTube, but then also our live viewers, to be able to connect with you. So, where would you direct them, either to a website or social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Mimosa Jones Tunney on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I just became a Forbes.com contributor, and so you can find me there. And I am very hands-on. And so mimosa@theschoolhouse.org is my direct email. I very much love hearing from leaders, professors, school administrators, educators, parents. This is my life's mission, is to make sure that we are getting the information out there to every person that interacts with a child on a daily basis. They are more than worth it. They are the center of everything that we do, and they are really not getting the kindness and focus and delivery that they deserve.
Yeah. Well, we're so appreciative of you and the amazing work that you're doing. I just threw your website in the chat for folks that are live with us. Of course, you can find more information at thrivingeducator.org/speakers, as we have a lot of information in that space. Charlie, I'm going to throw it to you as far as, is there any last words that you want to close with?
Yes, please go seek this information out. There is so much we can learn from all of the hard work and the vision that you've had. We are absolutely grateful. Our society needs you. So thank you for the work that you're doing, truly.
Thank you, Charlie. I really appreciate it. I also don't want to forget that, the Schoolhouse and the American Emergent Curriculum were a Pulitzer of Education winner this year, the Yaz Prize. It's a very important prize. If anybody is watching this who is doing innovative work, the applications are open now until June 1st. It really puts you at the forefront of people making a difference. And being a Yaz Prize winner has made a big difference in the work that we're doing. So I encourage everyone in education to take a look at that prize.
Yes, and it really is remarkable. It's a transformational prize. It really is a big deal. You all need to look at it. It's all over the place. So check it out. Featured across major national media. There's just this future of education. There is hope and there is an answer. So go check it out, everybody, please. Thank you again, Mimosa. We are grateful to have you.
Thank you, Charlie. I hope to see you soon. Take care.
Yes. Take care. Bye-bye.